How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Hockey Playoff Edition. I'm here with my guy, Christopher Babos. Chris, how's it going, man?
I can't complain. Round two of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs underway. A couple of awesome games last night. Good start in Toronto the night before. So well underway in round two.
Yeah, Toronto off to a good start. William Nylander was big
Mhm.
time in game one. Very important to grab game one at home against the defending champs, Florida Panthers. But last night's game, Chris, I got to start with a team that I've been covering all year, Edmonton Oilers, Oilers versus Vegas Golden Knights.
Hmm.
This is the rematch of, I believe it was 2 years ago
Hmm.
in the playoffs, which obviously the Golden Knights won that series. But game one, I mean, this is the Oilers being the Oilers. They got off to a slow start, and
Hmm.
once again, they claw, fight, scratch their way back into the game. And that third period was magical. It was special to watch. Zach Hyman put them ahead 3-2, and then Connor
Hmm.
Brown. Connor Brown is having a phenomenal postseason. I'm
Yeah,
very
he is.
happy for him. He's making me proud. And the Oilers won 4-2. And Chris, the last time we were here, we were talking about the Edmonton Oilers being on code red against the Kings. They were
Hmm.
down 0-2 in that series. Ugh, if you're the Kings fans, you just really gotta hate Edmonton at this point.
Yeah, it's
Four
brutal.
years in a row, and just when you finally thought that you had them, once again, Oilers are like, try it again next time. So,
Hmm.
but
What
Oilers they stole game one from Vegas Golden Knights, another comeback. And what are your thoughts?
I think the Edmonton Oilers would be my favorite for the Stanley Cup if they had a goaltender I trusted. I really don't trust Skinner. Um, Pickard's been hot, but again, I don't have a ton of faith in that goaltending situation. And you have two of the best players in the world, and I feel like you're flipping a coin in net. Which again, I mean, these are people that are paid way, way more to know way more about hockey than I do to make these decisions and hand out these contracts. But I would think after the last couple of seasons, I would have looked for a different solution. But hey, Edmonton's still in that second round. I need to go back and watch that game. I was pretty brain dead after the Capitals overtime game. We'll touch on that in a minute, but they got absolutely pasted by the Hurricanes. But as far as the Oilers go, it was a quick start for Vegas. They scored twice in the first, I think it was 10 minutes or so. And then Edmonton just chipped away. A very typical playoff game of just, staying with it. Corey Perry scored. Draisaitl gets a goal to tie it, and then at that point all bets are off because the game's tied in the second. And we've had a lot of that lately in these NHL playoffs, which has been great.
Yeah, I don't trust the Oilers goaltending at all whatsoever. And just like you said, Picard has been hot, but I just don't trust it. This is in order for the Oilers to go far, the offense just needs to stay hot. And if there's a miracle that the goaltending shows up at the right time, then great. But I'm not sold on the goaltending. I really want Edmonton to go back to the Stanley Cup. Hell, I would even want them to win it all, because Connor McDavid is my guy,
Hmm.
and I like Leon Draisaitl as
Sure.
well. But Connor McDavid is my guy, so I really want that for him. And it's been a long time since
If
Edmonton has won the cup,
if I
but
can give some hope to Oilers fans, and I'm sorry to cut you off,
it's all right.
if I can give some hope to Oilers fans, the Philadelphia Flyers back in 2010 made the Stanley Cup final with a goaltender they claimed off of waivers, Michael Layton. I unfortunately remember that Stanley Cup all too well because the Flyers lost. However, it was still an incredible run. They had Brian Boucher, I want to say, up through like the Eastern Conference Finals, if I remember correctly. I believe he got hurt against the Devils. And they patchworked it for the rest of the playoff. So, um, in theory, you can get by with questionable goaltending in the NHL playoffs if the rest of your team is playing a committed game. As you mentioned, the goal scoring, continues to you know, be worthwhile in the playoffs. And a good defensive effort, and you can kind of limit teams there. So if there's a bit of hope, there is some history that could help the Oilers, but Man, I wouldn't feel too comfortable as an Oiler fan right now.
And that's a good example. Philadelphia Flyers 2010. Wow, man, 15 years. But hey, if you're gonna lose to someone, at least you lose to the Chicago Blackhawks, who they were dominant in those early
Hmm
2010s. Winning three
You
Stanley
had
Cups in 6 years. So, and that was the
Toes,
first one.
Kane, Seth
Same.
Jones, I believe, was on that
Yeah.
team.
Hmm.
Dustin Byfuglien, who I have wanted to elbow straight in the face. No disrespect, Mr. Byfuglien. I don't know him, but and oh man, I still can't hear Chelsea Dagger. I forget who does the song, but their goal song for Chicago still just eats me up because there was one game I want to say Chicago scored 6 or 7 in that Stanley Cup final, and I wanted to rip my TV off the wall every time I heard that song.
Now that you mentioned that, I gotta rewatch that series because it's been a long time. It's one of those Stanley Cup finals that it's like no disrespect to either teams, but it was
No,
just like on the bottom of my list. But now that you mentioned that, I gotta go back and recap and see that series again because again, it was the first of three
mhm.
Stanley Cup titles for Chicago.
If
But
you want
but
something
yeah.
to look for while you're watching that,
Hmm.
keep an eye on the makeup of the Flyers roster. Danny Briere was on that team, so I would imagine he would probably do his best to rebuild a Flyers squad in that image with today's skill, if that makes any sense. So looking at some of the qualities that were important to the Flyers during that Stanley Cup run could potentially give you some insight into what the Flyers are looking to do as they move forward in the next couple of years here.
All right, I'll definitely will look into that. Thank you for that, Chris.
Of course.
Um, Next, um, Carolina versus Washington, in which the
Yikes.
Hurricanes they won it in overtime.
The Washington Capitals in this game got a storm warning that they did not heed. They stayed home, and then they got absolutely destroyed by the Carolina Hurricanes in that game. The possession in the game was easily, I haven't looked at the stats this morning, but it was like 2/3 in favor of Carolina. Um, eh, and it was the same game that they played against the New Jersey Devils in round one. The same exact game for the Hurricanes. I just didn't think that they were going to have the same amount of success against the Capitals. And oh man, they did almost anything they wanted to. After the game, Spencer Carberry was like, look, it just wasn't a good game for us. You could look at basically everything: offensive zone, defensive zone, neutral zone. It just overall was not a good game for the Capitals. So they're gonna have some things to fix up. It's a 2-1 game. So I mean, it's not like they were running out the building. But the shot attempts were ludicrous. It was something like plus 70 to 23 or something like that. It was just absolutely insane. At one point in the second period, sorry, after the second period, the Capitals had more blocked shots than they had shots on goal. They had 15 blocked shots to 14 shots on net, just to showcase how much time they spent in their own zone. So Carolina really brought the effort, and it's going to be up to Washington to match that in game two.
Oh yeah, Washington they definitely got to pick it up because it looked like a team that psychologically, mentally, and physically they were just not there.
Hmm
They were not there in game one, and that's not your typical Capitals hockey style of play. So, but
They
Carolina, you
look
got to
like
give
a
them
team
credit.
that they look like a team that had sat for a week,
Yeah.
and Carolina did not. Carolina looked like they were, rocking, ready to go, and I like the Capitals' effort defensively. That was absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, you can't play 80% of the game playing defense and then try to just snap your fingers in transitional offense. I don't care if you have an Alex Ovechkin or not. You're not going to get enough offensive zone starts to get him enough opportunities for that plan to work. So they're going to need to find a way to battle because Everything Carolina did was just sheer effort from my standpoint. I mean, I'm sure there's a little more into it. I need to go back and like kind of scrutinize the game a little more, because I was writing it for recap purposes. But it was one of those things that every time a Capital had the puck, there was a hurricane within a stride or two. And that pressure led to the game tying goal in the third. It was a pass, but I want to say it was Lars Eller on the sideboards tried to pass it to the defenseman to get out the zone, missed the pass, and then all of a sudden Carolina has it, gets it to Stankoven, and the game is tied. It was a very simple mistake, but it came at I think 10 minutes left in the third period. So those are the things that like will really sink you, especially in a game where the margins were as tight as they were.
Last but not least, Chris, the other day when we spoke off the camera, I think we were talking about in terms of the line handshaking,
Hmm.
something like that. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got this awesome opportunity to do a piece for the hockey writers, taking a brief look at the handshake line. Coach Maurice from the Jets caused a little bit of stir in the headline, saying that he didn't really think that the coaches should be involved in that. Previously, they would, step off the bench, shake hands, and then just head to the locker room. Nowadays, they get in the line behind all the players, do the handshake and everything like that. So, personally, I think it was a lot to do about nothing. I'm good with it either way. I'm fine if the coaches want to go in and show that respect, but also on the flip side, if they want to let it just be for the players, I can understand that idea as well. Um, the thing that I found interesting about the handshake line is that actually started back at the start of the 1900s. It was actually the first disputedly the first NHL All-Star game, not officially sanctioned. Well, sorry, the first All-Star game. It was before the NHL was even in existence, and it was a benefit for a guy that had died after winning the Stanley Cup in 1908. So they held this charity fundraiser. They shook hands at the end, and the team that had won, the team that were the champions, were the Montreal Wanderers at the time. Um, at at that point in time, the Stanley Cup was defended in 2 to 3 game series during the season. It wasn't at the end of the year. So they defended the championship, I want to say 5 or 6 times in that 1908 season, and they shook hands with their competitors every single time they defended the cup. So it was a very interesting look at kind of how that all started, and then obviously with the tradition of hockey, how much it means to the sport and to the people that run the sport. So if you want to check that out, again, it's on thehockeywriters.com. And yeah, you can find it with my name, and yeah, it was a really fun piece to put together.
Nice. I'm definitely looking forward to reading that. But that's a nice piece of history right there, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading that. As a hockey fan, I love the handshake. I like
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of sportsmanship. I like seeing the class, the respect, no matter what the result, the end of result of the game may be. There could be times that it's an awkward situation, especially
We
when one
touched
of
on
your
that.
guys get hit. And the
Hmm.
perfect example that comes to my mind was the 96 Avalanche versus Red Wings that Draper
Hmm.
hit,
Yep.
which the Red Wings, they won 60 games that year. They won the President's Trophy. But that was the game where not only Draper got hit, but they got eliminated
Hmm.
by the Avalanche, which they went on to the Cup Finals and they won it all. But
Hmm.
that awkwardness of, oh my
That
God.
30
And
for 30, that 30 for 30 was
yeah,
phenomenal.
guys, if you haven't seen it, watch Unrivaled. If you don't have ESPN Plus, highly recommend it. Check it out. Plus, we're in the Stanley Cup playoff season. I highly recommend it. That was an extremely
Hmm.
hostile rivalry. In my opinion, to this day, is the greatest hockey rivalry I've ever seen. Avalanche Red Wings, because it
I'd put it
lasted
up
from
there.
96 through 2002. And what
Hmm.
made that rivalry so great, Chris, is that both teams were elite teams. It's not just one
Hmm.
team dominated the other.
Oh
They were
yeah.
both, going at it back and forth. And if it wasn't for the Dallas Stars and other teams, they could have met more throughout those 90s, late
Hmm.
90s and those years. But the Dallas Stars, in my opinion, they were the disruptor of that rivalry, and especially in the late '90s, early 2000s. But
Who
yeah,
would have
but
thought that? Who would have thought that, buddy? Dallas disrupting everything. Hmm.
mm,
Hmm.
Miko Rantanen the other day. Oh man,
Well, oh man, if that man is not comfortable in a Dallas Stars jersey before that game, oh man, he lives and breathes green now. That was incredible. Third period hat trick essentially for Miko Rantanen to win the playoff series. Unreal.
unreal, unreal stuff. But Chris, definitely, I like the whole handshake thing. I mean, I don't if coaches don't want to shake hands after, okay, fine, whatever.
Same.
But as a hockey fan, I love seeing sportsmanship.
So, see,
That makes sports great.
here's one for you, and I won't give you the whole thing, so people have to go check out the article. But there was a game that ended in overtime, about 30 seconds game time after a bad hit was laid in the Stanley Cup playoffs in overtime, and the teams shook hands. There was not a fight. So I'll let you go back and check out the piece a couple of years ago. And I'll say it was in the Western Conference. I'll at least give people that nugget.
Nah,
And
come on, give the suspense. Stay with the suspense.
well, there you go.
But hey, if you
And
want to say, go ahead.
no, I'll just say it's in the Western Conference. But it was that was a really fun thing to look at. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't fun in the moment for the guys, but it was a fun thing to look at and kind of how everything transpired. Such high emotions at the time. Some players were obviously unhappy. Calls were not made, and then a game-winning goal was scored in overtime. And thankfully, cooler heads prevailed in that handshake line. It did not exactly go the same way in the NCAA. So that's another little nugget that I learned from that article is that there have been fights at the minor league levels in those intense handshake lines.